CNN.
Well, the chorus of voices criticizing NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, that chorus is getting much, much louder. The latest comes from former Steelers player James Harrison. He was fined by Goodell during his playing days. On Twitter, he wrote, "Okay, at NFL Commish, Roger Goodell. So let's just say you didn't know. So at best, it's negligence. What fine, suspension, penalty would you make up for that?" Goodell says he did not know Ray Rice hit his wife during an argument in Atlantic City. However, several reports say Rice himself told Goodell in a private meeting in June. AP is reporting that the videotape of Rice hitting his now wife was sent to the NFL 5 months ago. Andy Scholes looks at the controversy surrounding the NFL commissioner.
Here's the running back.
The Baltimore Ravens taking the field for the first time since their teammate Ray Rice was let go amidst a domestic violence controversy. In a new report, 4 sources tell ESPN that Rice met with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell back in June, admitting he punched his then-fiancée Janae Palmer in a casino elevator months before TMZ posted the surveillance video. On Tuesday, Goodell told CBS News that Rice's account of what happened was ambiguous compared to what the video showed.
What was ambiguous about her laying unconscious on the floor, being dragged out by her feet?
There was nothing ambiguous about that. That was the result that we saw. We did not know what led up to that.
The number of current and former players calling for Goodell to be held accountable is growing by the day.
Roger Goodell failed to act, plain and simple. He failed to act, there should be consequences.
And former Philadelphia Eagles running back Brian Westbrook tweeting, "Being a leader is not a part-time job. If Goodell holds the players to a high standard, he should be held to that same high standard." Mere hours before Thursday night's kickoff, CBS officials nixed a pre-recorded Rihanna opener, considering the singer's own history of domestic abuse at the hands of ex Chris Brown. Instead, devoting time to a discussion about the abuse scandal rocking the NFL, culminating with James Brown making a powerful plea.
According to domestic violence experts, more than 3 women per day lose their lives at the hands of their partners. So this is yet another call to men to stand up and take responsibility for their thoughts, their words, their deeds, and as Dion says, to give help or to get help, because our silence is deafening and deadly.
After defeating the Steelers, the Ravens voiced their support for their ex-teammate.
He's always been unbelievable in the community here, and people have really grown to love him, and they support him, as do we. We acknowledge the mistake he made.
Ray is still a great guy. You know, he made a mistake. You take away those 2 minutes of his life, and you look at a model citizen, a model man.
Fans also showing loyalty to Rice by wearing his jersey.
I stick behind Ray Rice 100%. And I will rock this jersey every day until he is back on that field.
This is a situation that is between his wife and himself, and I feel that everybody should leave them alone and let them deal with the situation.
And that was Andy Scholes for us. And Andy tells us that he was really shocked to see how many female Ravens fans were actually wearing Ray Rice jerseys at the game this week, and that people Andy talked to were more upset at the NFL and Roger Goodell than they actually were with Ray Rice. So let's bring in our legal team, criminal defense attorney Tanya Miller in for Avery Friedman, and Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor. He is in Las Vegas. Tanya, you look at the commissioner's reaction, and he says, well, we only saw her being dragged out of the elevator. That's the part we saw. But why didn't he say anything about the fact Ray Rice didn't even lean down to help his wife? Shouldn't that be the base minimum? If you accidentally hit somebody, don't you actually try to find out, are you okay?
Look, I think Goodell has problems, and the biggest problem that he's going to have here is that there are law enforcement officers who say that they provided this full video to the NFL months before it was released by TMZ. Goodell presumably had that video, or someone in his office had that video, if you believe the report of law enforcement. Now, if that is true, and if that turns out to be true, and it's being investigated now by Robert Mueller, former head of the FBI, who's conducting an independent investigation into that. If that's true, then we have a problem with Goodell potentially covering this up, potentially misleading other team owners and players and the public. So Goodell's going to have a bigger problem than his opinion of whether or not Rice should have helped his wife up after she was laying face down on the floor of a casino if he lied to everybody about what he knew and when he knew it.
And, you know, Richard, it's fascinating to me. I really get the sense that the key players, the stars who bring in a lot of money, the stars who bring the fans, they are enabled by a lot of the people around them. Arguably, Goddell enabled Rice by not calling him to account quickly and decisively right at the beginning. He could have gotten ahead of this. He did not. Why not?
Look, he did not, but there's two things going on here. Let's just not mistake, because people in Baltimore have lost their mind, okay? He almost killed this woman. He didn't just smack her. He didn't just push her. He knocked her out cold, dragged her, threw her head down on the ground. He almost killed her, whether she wanted to press charges or not. In New York, my client's sitting in prison right now off that video, okay? So that's step number one. Number two, oh, what a tangled web we weave, I guess, when we first seek to deceive. The NFL, Roger Goodell, I think he's in big trouble right now. It's clear TMZ sent that video to the NFL 4 or 5 months ago. And for Roger Goodell to say, listen, it wasn't tested because I had asked for it from law enforcement and they refused to give it to me, but he did see the video. And then for him to give a little slap on the wrist, a 2-game suspension, that's beyond absurd. And the stories that he's covered, it looks like a cover-up right now. It looks bad. It looks like the integrity of the NFL is going down the toilet fast here.
So, and I want to ask Tanya about that right now. Look, the former FBI director, Bob Mueller, really a guy of great integrity, a man who's stood up to leaders and said this isn't the way it should be happening. But given that it's going to be overseen by 2 NFL owners, is it really an independent investigation? Will it be sort of the clear call that the NFL needs, Tanya?
Well, when you say oversee, so there's two sort of ways to think about that. First of all, there's sort of your point of contact. The 2 NFL owners, team owners that are the point of contact for Mueller and his team does not mean that they're going to supervise him. It's not mean they're going to dictate to him what he can ask and what he can see. They are just there to facilitate his investigation. And I just do not believe, without any other evidence, that Mueller would allow someone to contaminate his investigation. He is a man with a high reputation, and I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, knowing what I know. Very quickly, as we wrap, thumbs up, thumbs down, does Goodell survive? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Don't say anything.
I think the Goodell's gone.
Okay. Jury split. All right. Thanks so much, Tanya and Richard. We appreciate it. Well, coming up, U.S. troops return from war. Many of them